for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's basically a buddy road trip, and in it you play as Noctis, the 20-something son of the ruler of a city that is wanted by a fairly no-good sounding empire. You've been sent by your dad to go meet up with your betrothed who's waiting for you somewhere in this world, and at the very beginning of the game your car breaks down. So you and your friends wind up at a gas station that's also a repair shop, which is the game's soft open way of introducing you to several of its systems. Chief among these is combat, which is the heart of any Final Fantasy game. It works like this. There are two modes, one called active and one called wait. If you play in active mode, you're playing in essentially continuous time. If you choose to play in wait mode, the game pauses whenever you stop moving. To attack something, you simply hold a button down, point in the direction you want to attack, and the game will continue to attack until you stop holding the button down. Now, while that sounds simplistic, it's tantamount to using your foot on the pedal so your hands and head can pay attention to other things. If you choose to play in wait mode, for instance, and I strongly recommend that you do because it's a more tactical experience, you can target enemies, learn their weaknesses, and then perform something that Noctis uniquely can do called a warp strike. Warp strikes let Noctis teleport around the battlefield, tagging enemies and doing more damage the farther away he is, or teleporting off the battlefield to recover magic points. It's a very clever idea, and that it both allows you to think tactically and surgically about how you're going to pinball around the battlefield, while at the same time accounting for the problem of space on the battlefield. The last thing you want to be doing is running everywhere when you're fighting, and for instance this battle is tiny compared to some of the extraordinarily big ones that you'll encounter later in the game. Like this guy area, to say nothing of his size, is absolutely enormous. Speaking of enormous, the game's open world is sprawling. It's so big, in fact, that you have to use a car to get around, and you will be so grateful, not only that you have a car, but that you don't have to worry about crashing it. The car cannot go off the roads, and this is critical because it lets you admire the scenery. And of course, you can go off-road. Chocobo. This is the series' iconic rideable bird you can summon at will. And this is where you're really able to appreciate just how different Final Fantasy is from anything that's come before it. It's almost Final Fantasy imagined by a realist painter. Everything is much more naturalistic. And this definitely made me feel more connected to the world. That world is plenty full of indigenous creatures to run into, but the evil empire loves to deploy random troop carriers, and that's a perfect about techniques, which are these individuated maneuvers that Noctis can ask a friend to perform, with little follow-ups that are pulled off by hitting a button when prompted. And those techniques can be leveled up or swapped out, which adds further offensive or defensive permutations to battles. But it's really the diversity of enemy types and or geometric complexity, where they have multiple attackable parts, or just their behavioral idiosyncrasy, or the way that those things recombine your 60-hour mark, just as exhilarating as at the outset. My only complaint about combat is that